I'm Eric Newton, and this is The Together Show. We all know relationships take work, but what is that work, and how do we do it? As a former divorce lawyer, I've watched thousands of couples break up firsthand. Having seen the worst in relationships, I decided to try to help couples stay together. So on this show, we talk to real couples and find out what love really looks like.
I said something like, I really enjoyed getting to know you as a friend. You're awesome. And I feel like there's something else going on here. And I just need to know if I'm crazy. Because at that point, I was like, there's definitely energy here, but he's in this relationship and he's not being overt. I could feel myself subtly starting to seduce him.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for joining. This week, we're posting episodes from two very fun interviews with Jenny Sauer-Klein and Hayley Winter. Now, Hayley is the child of another couple that we had on the show a couple of weeks ago, Katie Nelson and Doug Winter. He's the grown-up version of the kid that they told us about. They told us that they let him run around naked in the front yard, scandalizing neighbors. So you can judge for yourself whether he turned out okay or not. And Jenny, she may be familiar to you because she's the co-founder of the Acro Yoga movement. And she's also a frequent speaker at conferences and workshops all over the world. And she's fairly prolific these days. Now, this is a fun set of interviews, partly because these two are just great to be around, but also because we've managed to capture them in two very distinct phases of their relationship. In episode 1, they're fresh back from their honeymoon, and everything is just sunshine and rainbows, and they're so much in love that they don't even admit that they fight until after we turn off the mics. So, Shar and I thought that was hilarious, so we waited a couple of months and then got back together with them and interviewed them again to ask about that fight. And that's what comprises episode 1. Interestingly, though, in the process of setting up for the second interview, another major issue came up, one that I think is actually quite important and that I think many women will probably identify with, particularly married women. And so that's the issue that we explore in episode 2. We're also going to post an article about this issue on the magazine side of Together. And that goes live tomorrow, which is Wednesday. Now, I'm not going to say any more because I'm really trying to build some suspense here. So with that, let's go to part 1 of our interview with Jenny Sauer-Klein and Hayley Winter.
Apparently, the first time we met was at the first ever Acro Yoga Festival, which was in 2010.
You say apparently because you don't remember it. And that's because you're a celebrity at Acro Yoga, and you were not.
I'm a nobody.
You were a nobody.
That's because, yes, I'm the co-founder of Acro Yoga, and I was running the festival, and I was bombarded with a lot of people. There was a lot going on. So apparently, Hayley came up to me towards the end of the conference and said thank you for the festival, and I don't remember that. But I believe that happened.
That's true.
So that was our very first meeting.
Yeah.
But then it was kind of a couple years of seeing each other at Acro Yoga events, like other festivals or like bigger trainings. And the first time I really remember Hayley was at an acrobatics training, and I was teaching about popping. So like, how do you basically throw someone up into the air effectively?
Right.
And I was using this analogy of winding up, like when you throw a ball. Like you wind up, and then you release, and you follow through, and that's what creates the speed. And afterwards, he came up to me and he was like, "You're right about that. I'm an ex-pro baseball player."
You used the
and
line.
Oh.
You really
let me
dropped
tell
that
you
baseball
that-
card, didn't you?
You are correct.
I think in that explanation you said it's kind of like this. I think, and I wanted to go up and let you know and validate you that you were in fact on the right track.
He was affirming me.
I was
Yeah.
affirming.
And I was like, ooh, he's cute and athletic and smart. And then that was kind of it for a while.
And a ginger.
And a ginger.
Everything.
And a
You,
ginger.
so, but fill in the backstory there. You were with baseball.
Yes, so I was drafted by the Seattle Mariners in 2007. And actually, no, 2006. And I played with them until 2007. And then I was injured and
Shoulder injury, right?
shoulder injury.
Yeah.
Yeah, torn. Not a torn rotator cuff, but like started to my labrum started to flare a little bit. And that's what got me into bodywork, is trying to help me and heal me and get past that injury. So
Which you did do. You healed, but it was too late for the baseball career by the time you did heal.
that's right. I mean, in you can always. Lots of people keep trying and trying and trying,
Yeah.
and for me, it was. I knew that it was over. I was a short right-handed pitcher, which meant that I was paddling upstream anyways. Wasn't a high draft pick, so no one had a lot invested in me,
Yeah.
except for myself.
Yeah.
And I realized that it was not going to be my future, and so I ended up turning to try and become the body worker I wish I could have had back when it could have mattered.
Right.
Yeah.
And now you have a bodywork practice.
That's right. So yeah, I work. Initially, I started work with a lot with athletes and helping them recover from injuries,
Yeah.
and slowly that bled into just working with everybody who's trying to recover from injuries. Because I realized the same practices and the same techniques and the same elements that served high performance athletes really also could serve individuals who had repetitive stress injuries from sitting at a computer all day, or who were weekend warriors and ended up falling off their bicycle.
Right.
So all that stuff was very helpful to help bring it to the mainstream, I think.
Which is why you were at an acro yoga event and had all this expertise for Jenny. And okay, so then you thought she was hot, or you thought he was hot,
Yeah.
and did something? What?
Still nothing
Still
happened
nothing
for at
happened.
least another year.
Yeah, it was a long kind of like we were around each other, circling in the same circles. I was actually giving massage to a lot of some of the teachers of acro yoga,
Yeah.
and at one point they recommended that Jenny and I trade because Jenny does Thai massage, not necessarily professionally, but she's an excellent Thai massage therapist.
She is?
She is.
I did not
Most
know
people
this.
don't know this, but she is fantastic.
Jenny.
Yeah.
Is this something that you're willing to do for friends?
For friends. Yes.
Interesting.
For friends.
Okay.
Yeah. So we ended up trading. So I would do deep tissue rehabilitative massage on her, and she would do Thai massage on me. And we would talk beforehand, and we would talk after.
And during.
They
became like 3-hour sessions, trade sessions. And then we would trade like twice in 1 week. So I'd see him on a Tuesday, and then I'd see him on a Friday.
Oh yeah.
And at
The
that
writing
time,
is on the
it was
wall at this
like
point.
I was seeing him more than I was seeing a lot of my other friends.
Right.
And when you do body work with someone, you're getting a lot of really deep information about them, and you're bonding in this different way. So it was intimate. I mean, it was clean. It was like very professional, but it was also we were getting to know each other on a lot of levels quickly.
Yeah.
And it was like every time the session would end, I was like wanting to spend more time, but it was, like the pretext was over, so there was no way to do it. I was like, okay, bye. And
Isn't that such a great
the yearning?
the yearning is
Oh,
such
yeah.
a great feeling, right?
Totally.
And also you want to, like, if you're a good performer, which you are, you want to keep your audience wanting more, right? You build up that yearning and then
Right.
leave. That's how Aubrey got me.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Nice.
But the whole trick was that during that time, Haley was in a relationship with someone else.
Oh, well, what about you?
I was single.
Were you still in your acro yoga partnership?
I was. It was winding down. It was already like, it was in the midst of falling apart. But that was like a business partnership.
Yeah. I'm not
Yeah.
suggesting it was romantic, but
Mhm.
it was intense.
Yeah,
it was taking up a
intense.
lot of your
Yeah.
energy and
Yeah.
such. Okay. All right. So you were single. You were in a relationship.
I was in a
Interesting.
relationship. Yeah, I had been in a relationship for about, I want to say 4 or 5 months when we first started trading, and then one day Jenny sent me a text, basically saying, "Can you meet in person?" And I said, "That sounds
As
ominous."
opposed to on Skype?
Yeah, right, or like over a phone call. Or
Yeah, I was very specific.
Very
I was like, I want to
specific.
see you in person. Yeah.
So I had actually gotten a small concussion that day, so I was a little loopy, and I was like, I wonder where this is going. But because I was a little loopy, I didn't think about it too much. And I said, yeah, let's meet up. And I think in retrospect, if I had been of very salient mind, I would have been like, okay, I could feel the butterflies would have started to come out. But yeah, so we met up in a park, and she basically said that she liked me And
Did you
there
say it
was-
that way?
No,
No,
she
I
definitely
did
didn't.
not.
Okay.
She did not say it that way.
I'm far more sophisticated.
I want to
Yeah,
hear what
yeah.
what the wording was, Jenny.
I said something like, I really enjoyed our massage trade, getting to know you as a friend. You're awesome. And I feel like there's something else going on here. And I just need to know if I'm crazy. Because at that
Yeah.
point, I was like, there's definitely energy here, but he's got this, he's in this relationship and he's not being overt. I could feel like I could feel myself subtly starting to seduce him in just very small ways that
Right.
were not overt, but they were just not appropriate. And I was like, I shouldn't be doing this in this situation. So that's why I wanted to just I needed to put it on the table. So that's why I said to him, look, I just need to put this on the table. I don't expect anything from you. I respect you're in a relationship. I just need to know where I'm at. Where are you at? What's going on here?
Good for you. You wanted to have some integrity around this.
Yeah, I just needed to know. I was really feeling crazy. I was like, am I making this up? Is
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
mutual? What's going on?
Yeah.
Well, I think the fact that I was very professional on my end, and I obviously there was energy, but at the same time, I had a very strong boundary.
Yeah.
I think it made you felt something, but you didn't know. There was
I wasn't getting
there was
confirmation.
no confirmation, no validation, because
Yeah.
I guess, and for me, the validation in that moment would be inappropriate
But, right.
if I'm starting to validate it without having a clear boundary.
And you were feeling it too, though.
Yes, I was feeling it too.
So you're having to work hard to keep from acknowledging and growing it.
Yeah, I think that there was a little bit of denial there. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it, but I didn't want to think too hard about it, because if I thought too hard about it, then it would force a decision,
Right.
and that decision would be uncomfortable.
Yeah. Either
So,
way.
Either way.
Yeah, I think Haley was in a little bit of denial.
Yeah.
And so when I put it on the table,
You
it was
put
like
it on the table.
it was
no
like,
messing
oh,
around now.
okay. And so he was like, thank you. I'm really flattered and honored. You're awesome. And I'm really attracted to your brain.
yeah.
And I
you
was
said that?
like,
How
And
about that for a line?
What?
now, if I remember something from the wedding, you're also attracted to her ass.
I am.
But you didn't say
I
that.
didn't
But you
mention
did not
that
say
in
that
that
at that
moment. No. I guess in that again, I'm really, both in my professional life and now and also in my personal life, I am really respectful of boundaries, and I'm a rule follower, as we previously established. So I guess I felt in my mind, if I started going to I'm attracted to you physically, that would be again a.
But she'd already put it on the table.
Right.
But
Well,
you were still in a
for
relationship.
me, being in a
so
relationship,
it would
it felt inappropriate to say I find you
Yeah.
hot.
Did you say that? Did you say,
No.
look, I'm not going to say, I can't go any, I just really, I'm limited here in what I'm allowed to say. I signed a confidentiality.
No, he did not say that. But right away, he was like, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm in a relationship and I'm committed to my girlfriend right
Yes.
now.
But
That was his first response, actually. And I was like, yeah, I totally get that.
I would also say that I said, but you are also not crazy.
Right. Yeah.
I wanted to
Yeah.
both affirm that you're feeling something real, but I'm also very clear on my position where I am in my relationship with someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And he was basically like, yeah, the kind of conversations we have, the level of emotion intelligence. We were both, I think, we were actually really lit up by each other's brains. There was something that I think we both felt really met by and stimulated by and intrigued by
Yeah.
in the conversations, the way that we met each other. That was really unique for both of us.
But don't you find, now, I mean, if we fast forward, we know that you two are married and you had a really, a great wedding and you're very happy, even though, it's a new marriage. But don't you find that the poly community refers to that as new relationship energy?
Mm-hmm.
When you first meet somebody new, you get this boost in just appreciation for who they are. If there's a potential for a chemical connection or whatever you want to call it, then you get a major boost in it. And you guys were experiencing that, and you've probably felt that before with another human prior to having met one another, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you may feel it again someday with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
But the next time when it happens, you'll both be married. And
Is this going to be a this or that question?
no, well, I mean, obviously the answer, if it were this or that, you would be like marriage. But what's going to be the difference next time when you're married and you feel that spark with somebody and somebody confronts you in a particular way, the way Jenny did? And I mean, I don't know the full, you got to finish the story, but whatever happened this time,
Mm-hmm.
what's the difference now?
I think for me, it's feeling like I'm probably going to meet a lot of people throughout my life that spark me on some deep level that'll be like, ooh, we really jive in this arena or in this way, and it's so exciting, fun. Like, and I've noticed like certain people bring out different aspects of me that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
But when I look at my relationship with Haley, it's like there's being met on so many levels simultaneously
Right.
that it's like I think it's going to be really hard to find someone
But
who's
it's
gonna,
possible.
It's possible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
possible.
possible, but it's also like I love partnership and like I love dedication, I love teamwork. I love the process of growing with someone. So for me there's also a lot of value in seeing something through. Like that feels good to me. I like that
Yeah.
conceptually of being also just being able to like I don't want to say compartmentalize different relationships, but be like I think that oftentimes now like we ask our lover, our husband, wife, person, whatever, to like be the one and only that fulfills everything in our lives.
Right.
And it's like if we can be like, oh, we fulfill a lot with each other and I can get different aspects of myself met by other relationships in my life in different ways. Like that for me is just making sure I surround myself with a lot of awesome people, that I'm not looking to Haley to fulfill everything. I don't
Yeah.
know.
That makes me want to ask questions about what is allowed to be fulfilled outside the marriage and what isn't.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
let me pause that and come back to it because I do want to hear the rest of the story. What happened?
So, essentially, what we did is I recognized and I said, no, you're not crazy, but I have this relationship which I need to see to whatever end that it comes to
Yeah.
on its own.
Yeah.
Whether that means that I stay with this person forever or if it ends in 2 weeks.
And what did happen?
It ended in 2 weeks.
And catalyzed by the conversation with Jenny?
Good question. I would say yes, in that. So the previous relationship I was in, my partner had a lot of health issues, and one of her patterns was to focus on. As soon as she focused her attention and energy and love on her partner, she would stop paying attention and taking care of herself,
Yeah.
and then her body would immediately fight back, and then she would get in survival mode and push the person away and to focus on herself.
Right.
Totally understandable, but a pattern that would be repeated and repeated and repeated. So she had actually attempted to break up with me a couple times during the relationship, and each time I pulled it back from the brink saying, well, the reasons you're giving me are reasons that I could break up with you, but they're not really reasons you should break up with me.
That's
And
great
she-
reasoning.
And she didn't really have an answer for that.
That's good logic.
And so then at the after we had that conversation, I think a part of me deep down knew that there was something really different about the connection and communication that we had with one another that superseded anything I'd ever felt in any encounter ever.
In life.
In life. I mean, there's things that can approximate it. I have a very close relationship with my parents. We communicate and are transparent on a number of levels. And it felt similar to that, but even deeper and more complete in some
Wow.
ways.
Wow.
Probably because, with your parents, you have a whole lot of backstory, and they push your buttons in certain ways. So
Well, all right, yeah, of course,
yeah,
with
all
parents.
all
but
parents, but in terms of like it was similar to that in terms of the closeness of the connection, but also so deep and powerful that I was like, well, I really want to pursue that. That's something that I need to figure out what that is.
So did you do the breakup?
No, so she still broke up with me,
Yeah.
but I didn't pull it back together.
Yeah, you just let it go.
I let it go.
And then,
And that I would say is a very Haley thing to do.
yeah.
Confronting people in conflict is not my best, not one of my strongest qualities.
Right.
So it's fairly easy for me to be passive and then allow something to happen, be strategic about it. And I think that's kind of what happened. I let her break up with me, and I said, okay, well, I think that you do need to focus on yourself.
You guys, that's a good origin story.
Hmm.
And it leads to a lot. It's also a good moment to pause and say, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Together Show, the podcast about what's really going on in relationships. I'm your host, Eric Newton, and I'm here today with Haley Winter and Jenny Sauerklein. And we were just talking about how they came together. And it sparked me to ask you if that dynamic where you tend to be sort of passive and let the the process of the relationship happened to you is still playing out in your current relationship. You said something earlier about being, Jenny, you said something about being rather proactive. And certainly you were when you confronted whether there was energy between you and Haley.
Mhm.
So is that still happening today?
I would say so. Yeah.
Probably.
I would say it's like big parts of our character. I think you are generally mover, pusher, find the best, make it better, progress. How can this be perfect? And this is pretty darn good. I'm happy where I am. And it's a really interesting mixture because we both have stuff to teach each other.
And be frustrated about?
Yeah, but I think that, there's the frustration only comes in my resistance to doing something new or my fear that I can't do it.
Yeah.
And I come back to the fact that I really appreciate that about her. I appreciate that what she's asking me to be and how she's rubbing off on me is something that I want to become.
Yeah.
So if I think about it, I can get behind it real quick.
Yeah. Always?
Yeah, I mean, when it gets harder, it's more to get behind it, but I also trust her really deeply. And one of the things I think is if you find someone you can trust more than you can trust yourself
yeah.
on certain issues, then that's really powerful because it means that you have the ability to grow in a way that you couldn't on your own.
Yeah. Have you known that what's the difference between making do and being content?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And it's something that I sit with a lot of like, am I settling?
Yeah.
Am I settling?
Which
or
is
am
the
I...
ultimate question that everybody asks themselves when they're in a romantic relationship,
Yeah.
by the way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if I've come to a distinct answer yet about the difference.
Well, as far as like the relationship, the fact that you keep pushing me and you keep me growing
Mhm.
means I'm not settling.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no way I can feel settled or that I'm settling if you're challenging my edges
Mm-hmm.
and I'm growing as an individual. And I think the same thing is true. Like you're shifting and changing and I'm rubbing off on you.
But Haley, you seem like you probably have some insight into the issue of settling versus what's
Contentment.
contentment?
Well, I mean,
I think
even
it's a fine line.
and
It's
also
so
I think
interesting.
contentment to me feels a little loaded as well. Like I feel like contentment is like making it okay, making yourself kind of comfortable.
Yeah.
And I'm not really okay with just comfortable. I want to be happy.
Yeah.
Which there has to be an element of excitement and
But you're able to generate happy just anywhere. Pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yes. Well, I think that's again what you focus on, right? What you're looking at,
So how's that different from contentment?
Well, so if you focus on things that make you happy, then you're not necessarily content. You're elevated by the things that you're witnessing and seeing. Being grateful that I have a very flexible schedule that I can control. And like if I need to sleep in, I can just sleep in. Like that's just being able to know that that's a possibility makes me feel good. And also, I have a strong desire to be happy. So like there's a willpower behind it.
Yeah.
Like what can I do to make myself happy? Decisions are made based upon if it'll make me happy or not.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of the let's not move, let's not do this because I'm feeling happy right here. This feels good. This is good. I'm happy. But I also know that I can be uprooted and move and find happiness elsewhere and find happiness in the moving, interestingly enough, where I wouldn't necessarily think is there.
There's an interesting kind of come to Jesus talk we had a couple weeks before we got married, where I was like, one of my biggest fears was around not necessarily having as many ecstatic experiences together as I was wanting.
Huh.
Because I'm kind of in some way I like to live larger than life. Like I've had a lot of really extreme experiences in my life and I love being at that edge of the unknown and exhilaration and all of that. And Haley's much more kind of even. And I think he finds a lot of pleasure and happiness in the very small daily things where I'm always looking for like the rush and like the peak experience kind of
Right.
sensation.
Mm.
So when I was bringing that up to him and I was like, he was like, you don't understand. He's like, I'm having experiences of awe and wonder all the time.
Yeah.
You just don't see it. You just don't know that I'm having that experience. And I'm like, I want to know that you're having that experience and I want to have that experience together.
Yeah, and I want to have access to having that experience from the small things in life,
Yeah.
which I don't right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's so genius about that is that he can't speak his own wisdom and insight. You had to do it for him, and vice versa. You guys, they're so freaking adorable. All right, so what phase are you in your relationship?
Besides being newlyweds,
I mean, what is
The
if
honeymoon
that's what it is?
phase.
What is it?
we're in newlywed, baby making.
Honeymoon. Moving phase.
We're in like a very generative, creative phase. I feel like it's like there's a lot of new, there's a lot of possibility, there's a lot of like dreaming and hoping and planning and scheming.
Have you guys had a hard phase yet?
No.
How are you going to
Not
be when
really.
you do?
I-
You know
I-
it's coming, right? We're all clear it's coming.
Yeah. I mean, for me, that was actually the biggest trepidation I had with getting married was not having gone through something very hard. And I came to terms with that because I realized that our communication is so unbelievable. It's nothing like I've ever experienced. That I do trust that we will be able to get through a hard time. But we've never argued.
We don't fight.
We don't fight ever. I think part of it is that both of us are extremely considerate of the other person naturally. So there's very few times where expectations are not met, and when they are, they're voiced almost immediately
Mhm.
and not with judgment, and the other person doesn't take judgment with it. It doesn't mean. I mean, I know hard times they're gonna happen. They have to. It's life, but
And fights too. You guys are gonna fight.
I'm sure at some point.
probably about a kid. I'm assuming that's gonna be the usual one that sparks a lot of opinions. in
Stop
people.
overfeeding him.
Have
I
you?
was overfeed our dog.
Oh,
Do you?
Well, the dog has been a good training ground for like
That's
how are you
true.
going to treat a kid, you know?
yes.
I can't wait till after you have a kid to ask if that was true.
Yeah.
Have you had conversations about child rearing?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we have. Not a lot of conversation, but I've voiced fears about conflicts we will have in raising and naming.
Naming.
Haley's
Well, let me
really
just ask
fearful
this:
about
helicopter or bonk rule?
What's
naming.
bonk?
What's the second one?
The bonk rule,
What's
a
the
bonk?
bonk
or
rule?
maybe it's the boink rule.
What's a boink?
We had a guest recently who was telling about his parenting style's boink rule. You got to let that kid boink itself on the edge of the table,
Ah,
or it'll
right,
never
to
learn.
learn.
You just
Right,
got to
right,
let
right.
it be a kid.
Yeah.
Definitely boinking.
I think I hope to lean more towards the boinking.
I
Boink
fear
over.
that she won't lean enough towards boinking.
That's your concern. Yeah.
That's my concern.
She's pretty cute with that little
Yeah.
dog.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So there's probably not much you can talk about regarding parenting at this stage because you don't even know what the questions are to ask.
Don't.
But if you had a list of questions, you would ask them. You said that your communication style is better than you'd ever experienced before. What does that actually mean?
I have yet to come into contact with any subject matter that I wouldn't feel comfortable discussing at any point in time with her. There's nothing that feels off limits, and even the things that would normally scare me in terms of rejection and feeling inept, I can be vulnerable, and when we are able to talk about it in a way that moves quickly through it. So
your great fear in communication historically has been looking inept.
Inept or being rejected, like
Yeah.
not like finding an impasse, like, okay, well, we just are not going to agree on this, and therefore we can't be together.
Yeah.
Like that, like we now have to like no longer see each other. for me, a pattern that I've had in my past with relationships is that I tend to, and it's actually a byproduct of being happy and being content, is that I don't see issues developing as they develop. I tend to have blinders on. Remember, it's all about what you focus on. So if I'm focusing on all the good things, then I don't necessarily see the
What
bad
needs work.
things that are, what's that?
What needs work?
What needs work. Exactly. And so it's actually been a pattern for me that I'm like happy, happy, happy. And 2 years into the relationship, the lady drops a bomb like, I'm out. And I'm like, what? Why? What? Oh, no, let me save this.
I didn't see this coming.
I didn't see this coming.
Too late.
Blindsided.
And so sharing that with Jenny was actually really powerful for her because it gave her even more permission to then, if you see something, let me know because I may be totally oblivious to it. That's like part of how I operate,
Right.
is to, for lack of a better word, ignore the bad stuff.
If you're just tuning in, this is the Together Show, the podcast about what's really going on in relationships. I'm your host, Eric Newton, and I'm here today with Jenny Sauer-Klein and Haley Winter, and we are talking about communication. So what Haley's saying is that the risk of talking about what might not be working in the relationship or doubts that you have about the relationship is actually a way to strengthen the relationship. Is that how you see it too, Jenny?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always scary in the approach of it. And then after, I always feel so much better. And I think it brings us closer because underneath, and I know especially we found this, we got married only 3-4 months ago. But I feel like that was a huge rite of passage that strengthened the container of the relationship. So it wasn't that either one of us were necessarily holding back things consciously. But after the wedding, like part of our honeymoon was just like, this is what I'm really afraid of. Yeah. Oh, shit, this is real. Like, I think we were both a little bit flipped out by the forever thing. Like, oh, you have this concept of what forever is before you get married. And then you get married and you're like, oh, shit, forever is real. And like, now we're in. Oh, my God. Like,
Yeah.
And so it brought up all this stuff for both of us that I don't think either one of us was necessarily even anticipating or conscious of.
Yeah.
And then I think both of us felt more safe to put it out there because there isn't that fear in the back of your mind. Like, if I say this, then they might leave or then it might be over. It's like, I'm going to say this and then we're going to figure out how to work through it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's made us, more honest in ways we didn't know we were not being honest and like
So you-
safer to move through.
And you would say anything.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. I mean, there's definitely things like that come up that you're like, oh God, how am I going to say that? Or, I think both of us are also very like wordsmithy kind of people.
So you work on how
And
you
so
say
I
something.
think, yeah, so I'll generally germinate on something if it's something that feels intense or deep, like I'll really sit with it to be like, how do I express this in a way that
Right.
can be received by my partner in a loving way that's not going to be really scary for either one of us. Like,
Right. It's
it
really
takes
important.
a lot of forethought sometimes to bring up that sensitive stuff. So I think like that's part of also the communication that makes it work between both of us. Like we're not blurters. Generally,
Right.
there's not a lot of blame either in the relationship. There's a lot of ownership, personal responsibility, and not taking things personally
Yeah.
that allows there to be a spaciousness. And like, I think there's a lot of witnessing and like, this is what's coming up for me. Wow. Like, I'm witnessing my own shit come up, but it's actually not about Haley. Haley's just the trigger that's bringing my shit up.
Which is a great perspective. So, but it sounds like coming back from the honeymoon triggered a lot of stuff. Was bars
On the
On the
honeymoon.
honeymoon.
on the honeymoon?
Yeah.
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 The romantic
what-
honeymoon was just like, bleh.
What were some of the other issues that came up?
Let's see. I think the biggest one was forever. Coming to terms with the new idea of forever. I think there was.
Who brought that up first?
I think it was me.
I don't. Yeah. I
How
don't
did you
know.
say it?
I don't even remember how I said it.
Because
I mean,
it
I feel like-
worked. I'd like to hear how you would have approached that.
Do you remember?
I think you maybe like asked me a question of how I'm feeling about forever. You know what I mean? Like how do I feel about the commitment being such a big thing? And I was like, yeah, that's taking on a new what's a good word for it? I don't know. It's taking on a new form for me.
Mhm.
The idea of forever. that's the best I can recall in terms of how you brought it up, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
specifically know how you worded it.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't remember like a specific moment where I was like talking about forever. It just was like there was a bunch of stuff coming up, and then eventually it became more okay to discuss that it was freaky.
What a hard question to bring up. I mean, because you're basically saying, I mean, you're threatening the sanctity of the marriage on the honeymoon with that
Exactly.
question. How do you? And so, how did you take it that she did bring it up?
I think I really understood. I was going through the same thing she was, which
Yeah.
was this feeling of like, wow, did I like totally delude myself before making this? But like we're having a shared experience, and it's helpful knowing that it's a shared experience. And yeah, I mean, it was not,
actually comforting to
it
be
was
like,
comforting.
oh, that
It
person's
wasn't
freaking out too.
yeah, it wasn't threatening. It was like,
Yeah.
well, we're both on this. We're both in this weird trip together, on a trip, but also tripping on this change in perspective.
So, did it resolve?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it did. I think it's on some level, it just took time to like settle into it. And I think for me, it was like the concept of forever just started looming really big, like a dark cloud, kind of like forever. And then it's been like coming back to the like day-to-day life again and being like, oh, forever is just a series of days that extend upon the relationship I have right now that I really love and enjoy.
Yeah.
And then it's a lot less scary. I think it just the concept got really overwhelming because you're just in that fresh thing. And one of our vows, you know, we had individual vows, and then we had mutual vows that we wrote together. One of our mutual vows was to say the things we're afraid to say.
Ballsy.
Whew.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like during the honeymoon, it was like, especially then, because everything was so like vibrant and rich and reverberating from the ceremony,
Yeah.
that it was like, I have to fucking live all that shit that I said. Like, that is for real. Like, I felt this like living commitments that we had made that I had to uphold. Like, we both had to uphold. And so it gave me even more fuel to like on the honeymoon, even when I was flipping,
Yeah.
to be like, I promised that I would say exactly this. This is exactly the reason you make that commitment. And it was scary, but it was like, well, this is the kind of relationship I've committed to having. So I better do it. Like, it would be a lot worse if I said I was going to do it and didn't do it
Right.
than just say whatever the thing is. And in my experience, it's always that I think about saying something and then I have a whole scenario that plays out in my mind of what is definitely going to happen because I said that thing. And it's almost never, ever, ever goes that way. It's like when you drop truth, I think you have no idea what the power of that truth is or where it's going to take you. It's never where you think it's going. I think it's almost never the worst case scenario because truth in and of itself, I think, has a liberating quality.
Truth will out.
Yeah.
And I think also, you know, when we go through difficult conversations or when we bring up difficult subjects, sometimes it's not easy to wordsmith or to find the right way to say it with the least amount of emotional impact.
Good point.
And I think we're both pretty good at recognizing that limitation at any given time in what we're doing, and so prefacing our conversation with, "Hey, I'm going to say something right now, and I can't say it in a way that I can't find a way to word it that's going to feel like easy and good, but I need to get it out." So take that into account when I bring this up, and you know, try and know that I'm trying to suspend judgment, but it's going to come out in a way that it's easy to get defensive about.
And that works so far.
And that really works. I think having that filter and that looking at it through that lens really allows you to like go, okay, this is not a judgment on me. I need to help this. We need to help each other find the core of this message. Like, what is actually happening here? And it's actually a problem that we're a puzzle that we're trying to solve, and it's for our emotional betterment and for the betterment of the relationship.
Yeah, in this example, it seems like it did strengthen the relationship to get it out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me set the stage.
Sure.
So, at the end of the last interview, you said that you'd never had a fight. Basically, you essentially said we just don't fight. And then we got off the mics, and you told me about a fight. And Shar and I thought that was really funny, and I've been wanting to connect with you and find out what that was all about. So, What was that all about? Can you break it out for me?
Sure. This fight occurred, I'm not exactly sure how long into our relationship, but I'm guessing about a year and a half. And I went down to LA, actually San Diego, to visit a friend of mine. And he was staying at a friend's house. It was a very nice palatial mansion. And we were hanging out, having a good time. And he and his friend said, "Hey, do you want to go to a strip club?" And I was like, "Sure, yeah, that sounds fun. Let's do that." I hadn't been into a strip club in I don't know how long. So we ended up going. And then when we came back, I think I may have talked to you that evening, and I didn't mention it. And I think I didn't mention it until the next day.
Until you were home.
Until I was home, which was like a day or two.
A few days later.
A few days later.
And we were talking every day throughout that time, so.
Right, I would talk on the phone.
There were opportunities.
There were opportunities to mention what had happened. And then I got home and brought it up. And through the discussion, we ended up discovering, Jenny ended up discovering that I had paid for a lap dance. And that was really challenging for her and triggering for her. And in the past, so prior to that, she had let me know that she had had a relationship with a previous partner where she felt like the partner would go to strip clubs and she felt like it was him cheating on her. And she was really distraught over it. It became a big thing in their relationship. And it may have been because I had had a few beers or because I had justified it in my mind, or both, but I felt like that was because of who that man was, and that our bond and our relationship clearly meant I was not cheating or had any sort of emotional connection, or that there wouldn't be any, the same feeling wouldn't apply to this relationship, that hubris. And that clearly wasn't the case, as Jenny was upset. And I would best describe this fight as really quiet. And again, like we talked about, what does it mean to get like further apart and then come back together and further apart? I don't even know if I felt like we were very far apart. We just got really sad together.
Well, let me ask a question. When
Sure.
you brought up that you had been to a strip club, because you didn't tell her for 3 days until you got home.
Yes.
Did you approach it delicately with her?
I think I approached it relatively nonchalant.
On purpose?
It's a good question. If I had to guess, I'd say yes.
So you knew that there was going to be some sensitivity around strip clubs.
I think I was probably worried there was going to be some sensitivity around it. In the moment, I had justified it, and that like this doesn't mean what it meant to her with that relationship, because we're a totally different couple, and she totally trusts me, and I trust her, and this doesn't mean anything. But in the moment, and I think this probably speaks to why I didn't bring it up on the phone, is that I was afraid of it coming across wrong or it being triggering for her, so I wanted to do it in person, or that's how I justified it in my mind so I didn't have to deal with it in that moment. But when it eventually came out, I probably brought it up nonchalantly in the effort to make it feel normal, because it should be normal, because it didn't have this bad feeling that it did in the other relationships where it shouldn't be carried with, anger or distrust. But that didn't work.
It didn't work.
Yeah, you were pretty upset.
I was super upset.
Are you still?
No. But I was.
And why aren't you anymore?
Because, so as Haley said, there was that past relationship that had built it up for me. Also, I went through a really strong feminist phase for a number of years in my life, and I still do. Like, I think there was some justification that Haley shared with me about, well, it's not cheating or it's not betrayal because it's just money and it doesn't mean anything. And I'm like, yeah, but that's part of the whole fucked up paradigm of like patriarchy and sexism in the United States and in many places, like that we don't think it's a violation because you pay someone. Like that makes it better, not worse. Like to me, that's. I think I was disappointed in him being a victim of that mentality and seeing women in that way as objects. Like, I find that offensive.
Like almost like I thought you were better than that.
Yeah, like I didn't think you were one of those people that was going to go to a strip club and get a lap dance, because I find that really gross. And there was such a strong charge for me, and also the fact that I was like, well, obviously you knew that this was going to upset me, otherwise you would have told me.
Yeah.
So then I felt like you hid it from me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there was that piece about like, okay, then I feel like there's something being hidden, and there's something you knew outrightly that I didn't like.
Yeah.
That I felt was a violation of the relationship, and you did it anyway. Like there was just that thing of me feeling like I was being lied to or deceived in some way, and betrayed in some way, and him feeling like, and I remember you said at that time that it brought up his stuff about feeling like, oh, when then something like that comes up in a relationship and maybe the relationship's over. Like there was thoughts for him, catastrophic thoughts about, oh no, now I fucked it up and it's over, which was never my thought, but it was that. And
that's where people like Haley, who don't fight very often, go when a fight happens.
Right. Exactly. So for him, it was like, oh no, I did something wrong. Now it's over. And for me, it was like, wow, that really hurts. I feel betrayed. And then on the other side of that was, this is a big trigger for me. It's always been a big trigger for me in past relationships. And the reality is I had never been to a strip club, but I had lots of ideas about what it was like and what it meant. So as we...
I would love to see the image in your head of what a strip club is like.
And so...
It was not what she found out.
So as we were kind of healing from that, and it only took us a couple of days to like come back together, but as we were healing from that and talking about that, I was like, because it was also the question of, like, there were some bachelor parties coming up soon, and he's like, what should I do about that? Like, if you don't want me to go, I won't go, but that's kind of awkward. I was like, I get it, and I don't want you to be that, like, whipped guy who's like, my fiance, my girlfriend or whatever won't let me go to the strip club.
Totally.
And I'm like, okay, I don't want to put you in that position. And so I was like, so for me, I said, yes, first of all, for the time being, yes, please don't go to a strip club unless we talk about it ahead of time. So we made that agreement. And then I was like, secondarily, I think that it's important for me to experience a strip club so that I can understand this thing that I have a lot of charge around.
Pretty cool of you to say that.
So we went together. So I was like, let's go. So we went together with one of my best friends and her boyfriend at the time. So the four of us went on a double date to the Hustler.
No, it was the Gold
Club,
I think. Yeah.
In San Francisco. And we tried really hard to get lap dances. I was like, fuck it, we're here, let's get lap dances.
I've never tried so hard to get a lap dance with money in my hand and not been able to.
And it didn't happen for whatever number of reasons.
I think they were just busy. It was a slow
It was weird.
Yeah.
So we went, and I was like, oh, this is gross but dumb and kind of laughable and whatever, and who cares? And then it just like something in that from that whole sequence of events like neutralized it for me.
What was missing in the experience that allowed you to place it in a new category?
What was missing from the experience? I don't know. I mean, I think in my estimation before, it had placed women as victims and men as perpetrators.
Yeah.
And I think maybe going in there, it was like the women are taking advantage of the men just as much as the men are taking advantage of the women. You know what I mean? It's like, you're like, oh, these poor creatures.
Yeah.
So
you really feel bad for the guys
you
who go
know,
to a strip club. It's so depressing.
I mean, I think essentially they're depressing places and everyone loses, essentially. And I think it's a sad thing. And if I were to wave a magic wand and say this wouldn't exist in society anymore, I think that would be lovely. But there's a lot of deeper rooted issues that cause that to be true. Yeah. And I think it's, you know, some people live in that world, and that's where they get attention, affection, love, romance, money. That's not our world. And so I think it's, if you're conscious of what you're doing and you know why you're doing it, I think it adds a lot of levity to the situation. And it helped me to be like, I trust Haley, and I know who he is, and I know our values and what our relationship means, and
it just helped me recategorize that as like, I don't think that's something that on his own Haley would instigate. Like, hey guys, what should we do on Friday night? Let's go to a strip club. But if he's at a bachelor party or if there's something going on where it's like, that's the flow, I didn't want to make him feel awkward, like he wasn't allowed to do that. Like, I don't want to restrict his freedom.
Yeah. So what's the rule now? What if he's at the bachelor party, they go to the strip club, there's a lap dance. Is he allowed to do it?
I think a lap dance would still be touchy. Do we have it? I don't know if we have any official agreements anymore.
I don't think we have any official agreements.
I think usually I get some notice when it's like, hey, this is going to happen. And I'm like, cool, have fun.
Yeah, I may be
No big
like,
deal.
hey, I'm going to be going to a strip club. But I don't think we have any particular... And I would just... That's
Yeah.
something I would preface it because I know that
Yeah.
it's a sensitive subject for you
Right.
in general.
Do you want the freedom to be able to have lap dances?
That's a good question. I mean,
Go right there,
yes, but mostly for the sake of the freedom.
Eric.
And
Yeah.
honestly, in some ways,
Yeah.
for her personal growth, and to be like, hey, let's like,
Right.
this is okay for us to have this agreement.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I have the freedom to get a lap dance, to go to a strip club and get a lap dance. I recently went to a bachelor party, and we all went to a strip club in Reno, and I was the only one who didn't get a lap dance, and it was by choice. And I got plenty of offers, but I was really just didn't feel like I wanted to do it. So, you know, I felt a little like abstaining from drinking at a frat party, but at the same time, I felt good about the decision.
Yeah.
So,
In that moment, but it sounds like you want Jenny to say, go for it for a couple of reasons. One is that it would be an acknowledgement of trust.
uh-huh.
And two, you want to be able to have the freedom. And also there's something around it not being that big of a deal that's important to you. Did I capture that?
I think that's pretty much spot on.
Yeah. Is that something you're ever going to be able to thumbs up to? Well, or green light to, I guess?
I don't think I would be like, have fun at the strip club with the lap dance, baby. Like, I don't know if that's going to be me, but I think I could be not offended.
Yeah.
I think I could come to a more neutral, like, because I remember when you came back and it was like, oh, how was the strip club? Like, we didn't even really talk about it that much.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a big deal. And he's like, oh, yeah, lap dances. I was like, oh, did you get a lap dance? And he was like, no. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't like, did you get a lap dance? Like,
Right.
there wasn't the same charge anymore.
Yeah.
I think if it happened, I might be surprised, or I might be intrigued, or I might be like, huh. And if my feathers got ruffled, it would probably be like a 5-10 minute thing, and then I'd be over it. You know, I don't think it wouldn't like dagger in the heart in the same way.
Yeah.
And I think a large part of that is just openness and honesty and clarity and communication. I think both of us have had we've had those conversations. Like, we would much rather know than not know
Yeah.
of what's going on. So I think that the honesty is more important than anything else, really.
Yeah.
Ideally, you know.
It's interesting in retrospect to realize that the biggest trouble spot was in me not considering the effect it would have on you initially, and I'm sure that inebriation had something to do with that. But then to not forgive myself for that inebriation and then bring it up to you and be like, hey, this is what happened. This is why I think it happened. But instead to be like, no, wait to do it in person and, you know, bring it up and see if it's an issue. Try and make it safer.
And then try to pretend like it wasn't a big deal. And I was like,
And I did a good job
I
of
get it.
like kind of self-deceiving a little bit, I
Yeah,
think,
you
for
did.
myself in that way. So it didn't feel like such a big deal because I was in a little process of self-deception there.
Dude, you've come a long way even since you told us this story in the studio.
Really?
Yeah. You were deceiving yourself then.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the way you told the story, you were saying, I mean, that was just a couple months ago, and you were saying, well, I didn't think it was going to really, I didn't, you know. And it was clear to me and Shar that you were totally lying to yourself. We said that in our outro,
Oh,
actually,
interesting.
and that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it tonight. But you'd already done it. There was nothing for me to ask you about because
He's already realized.
He already did the
his
realization.
Self-deception.
Yeah.
But
Well-
it was very much. I mean, I had a real blind spot around it. Real blind spot. So it's cool to learn that about myself.
You don't like conflict.
I don't.
No.
Nope.
Yeah, I don't either. I feel you. Well, guys, thanks so much. Thank you. It's been really great being here, and we've talked a lot about a lot of stuff.
Well, that's it for part 1 of the Jenny and Haley episode, folks. Be sure to tune in Thursday for part 2, in which Jenny and Haley discuss this issue that I'm so obviously trying to build suspense around. If you'd like to hear more about Jenny or learn about her trainings and programs, you can find her website at jennysauerklein.com. That's JennySauerKlein.com. And you can find Haley's bodywork practice and his methodology at thewintermethod.com. That's THEWINTERMETHOD.com. And both of those links will be in the show notes in case you didn't grab them just now. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe to us on iTunes. It makes a big difference when you do that. If you have any questions or comments, or if you'd like to be on the show, please reach out to us via one of our platforms. You can find our website at www.together.guide. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/togethershow. Twitter and Instagram are both at together_show, or you can email me at host@together.guide. Our producer is Charlene Goto. Our web designer is Courtney Munna. Our art director and my one and only is Aubrey Pick. She's the whole reason, folks. Thanks once again to my guests, Jenny and Haley. Guys, leg of lamb. That's all for today, folks. See you next time.